The construction of the pyramids is one of history's most ancient and unsolved mysteries. How were the Egyptian pyramids constructed? Many scholars and scientists have asked and wondered about the building projects of the pyramids throughout history. Over 100 Egyptian pyramids, including the Great Pyramids of Giza, are considered the greatest works of human engineering and architecture. These monuments are still standing after over 4,500 years and remain a mystery to this day. Some scriptures found by ancient Egyptians can help us to understand a bit better how the construction of such monuments has come about. These massive limestone or mud brick structures are the world's oldest known man-made structures. Egypt experienced tremendous economic prosperity and stability during the 3rd and 4th dynasties of the Old Kingdom. In Egyptian society, kings occupied a unique position. When the king died, the ancient Egyptians believed that a fraction of his spirit, known as Ka, remained with his body. To properly care for his spirit, the corpse was mummified, and everything the king would need in the afterlife, including gold vessels, food, furniture, and other offerings, were buried with him. The pyramids became the focus of a cult of the dead king that was supposed to continue well after his death. Giza's Great Pyramids. The Great Pyramids of Giza, located on a plateau on the west bank of the Nile River on the outskirts of modern-day Cairo, are the most famous. The Great Pyramid, the oldest and largest of Giza's 3 pyramids, is the only surviving structure of the famed 7 wonders of the ancient world. It was constructed for Pharaoh Khufu, Cheops in Greek. Although Khufu reigned for 23 years, 2589 to 2566 BC, little is known about his reign other than the grandeur of his pyramid. The pyramid's base sides average 755.75 feet, or 230 meters, and its original height was 481.4 feet, or 147 meters, making it the world's largest pyramid. Who built the pyramids? Though some popular histories held that the pyramids were built by slaves or foreigners forced into labor, skeletons excavated from the area show that the workers were most likely native Egyptian agricultural laborers who worked on the pyramids during the time of year when the Nile River flooded much of the surrounding land. To construct Khufu's Great Pyramid, approximately 2.3 million blocks of stone, averaging about 2.5 tons each, had to be cut, transported, and assembled. According to the ancient Greek historian Herodotus, it took 20 years to build and required the labor of 100,000 men, but later archaeological evidence suggests that the workforce was closer to 20,000. How were the pyramids built? For many years, historians and scientists have been puzzled by the techniques used in the construction of the Egyptian pyramids. Many controversial hypotheses about the pyramid's construction have been proposed. The general theory holds that the massive stones were carved from the quarries with copper chisels. These blocks were then dragged and lifted into place. However, the method for moving and positioning these stones is highly contested. What is certain is that the workforce was highly organized and managed to the highest level by following a well-organized and planned 3-phase process. To build the pyramids perfectly, the workforce depended on a specific process that included 3 important steps: selecting the ideal building site preparation, and raising the blocks. 1. Choosing the perfect building site. The first step in constructing a pyramid was to find a suitable location. Given that the ancient Egyptians believed that wherever the sun set was the portal to the afterlife, this had to be on the west side of the Nile. The pyramids also had to be built on high ground, away from the risks of flooding during the Nile's inundation. However, it could not be too far from the Nile bank because the river would be used to transport blocks of fine quality limestone from Tura on the other side of the Nile for the outer casing. The chosen location would be on a desert plateau with a firm rock base capable of supporting the great weight of the pyramid without risk of cracking. The location of each pyramid was chosen based on its proximity to the respective king's residence, as the king would need to inspect the development of his burial chamber on a regular basis. 2. Preparing the site. No plans for the pyramid's construction were ever discovered, but the pyramid's construction was not haphazard, and the measurements used were extremely accurate. The workers had to start by removing the loose sand from the rock in order to build a solid foundation. The rock base had to then be completely flat. Workers may have accomplished this by constructing low mud walls around the base and cutting channels in a grid pattern across the surface. They would then fill the channels with water and mark the level at which the water would reach. After the water had faded away, any protruding rock would have been cut back to the indicated level, and any depressions would have been filled with stones to create a perfectly level surface. Each pyramid side had to face one of the cardinal points. The builders most likely started with true north and worked out the other directions from there. They may have discovered true north by observing a specific star in the northern sky. 3. Raising the blocks. The precise method used to raise the pyramids is unknown. Pulleys were not invented until the time of the Romans. However, the Greek historian Herodotus describes the use of levers to raise the blocks from one level to the next. It has also been suggested that workers working in groups used a ramp to move the blocks into place. The ramp would have been raised as the pyramid grew in size, allowing workers to progress to the new level. The main issue with this is that the ramp would have eventually grown to be as large as the pyramid itself, reaching an incredible distance into the desert. Construction methods are still hotly debated and are still one of the greatest mysteries of ancient human civilization. However, the blocks having such a large size, there are several theories for the construction of the Great Pyramids. 1. The ramp theory. The ramp theory is probably the most widely accepted and supported by evidence. In a nutshell, it discusses how the pyramids were built using only slave effort and tens of thousands of workers. Stones were supposedly dragged across the desert by ropes and sleds, and the ramp theory was only recently updated to include that they would also wet the sand to reduce friction. The wet sand made dragging the stones much easier, and this practice can be seen in some ancient wall paintings. It is believed that after the stones were dragged across the desert, one of the series of ramp options was erected to drag the stones to the top as they built upwards. Workers used sand to build either a straight ramp up one side, a spiraling ramp that wrapped around the pyramid, or a combination of the two. Levers were also supposedly used once a significant height was reached and ramps became unworkable. This theory is supported by the presence of sleds in ancient wall drawings, as well as images of giant statues being pulled by hundreds of men. These ramps, however, would have taken a long time to build. 2. The water shaft theory. Most aspects of the water shaft theory differ from the ramp theory, beginning with how the stones were transported. While the ramp theory talks about dragging stones across the desert, the water shaft theory describes how special canals were built all the way to the construction sites, allowing the stones to float all the way there. Floats were said to be made of cedar wood or inflated animal skins wrapped in papyrus, and when attached to the stones, they could be dragged away from the shore. The canals led to a moat that went all the way around the build site perimeter, allowing blocks to be floated to the side where they were needed. 4 water pipelines were supposedly used to float the blocks uphill, and they were extended as the pyramid grew. A series of gates controlled how the blocks moved from the moat to the top, and a pool of water on the build site's roof allowed for additional floating and positioning without any dragging or real heavy lifting. According to this theory, the canals and water elevators made it relatively easy to move the stones. Although there's no concrete documented evidence to support this theory, traces of water throughout the structure and imperfections along the middle of all 4 sides have been found to support it. 3. Switchback Theory. It's the way your car corkscrews up a mountain road. It does not climb the mountain in a straight line. It goes in circles. That would have been the method they used to get the blocks to the top. They may have had the equivalent of a switchback road corkscrewing up around the pyramid until the blocks were in place, at which point they could begin filling in. Whatever you believe, there's no denying that the Egyptian pyramids are ridiculously impressive for the time period and that we'll probably never know how they were built. We can all agree that it took an insane amount of intelligence and manpower, and we're so lucky to still have them after all these years. If you liked our video, don't forget to press the like button and subscribe to our channel to learn more. Thank you.